सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। चैतन्यं सर्वगं सर्वं सर्वभूतगुहाशयं यत्सर्वविषयातीतं तस्मै सर्वविदे नमः। Verse 44. नदृशेरविकारित्वाद् आभासस्याप्यवस्तुनः नाचितित्वादहङ्कर्तुः कस्य संसारिता भवेत्। It's a very fundamental question. Kasya samsarita bhavet? Kaha samsari? What it means is, who is samsari? These are the entities that can possibly be samsaris. Drushihi, the self, the consciousness, is one entity. Abhasa, chidabhasa, second entity. Abhasa ashaya, like a mirror, the aham vritti. So avidya and the avidyakari aham vritti, third entity. These are the three entities. None of them qualifies to be a samsari. Because drushehe avikaritvat, drushihi, the very sakshi, the witness, the consciousness is changeless. So some change, transformation should take place for samsara, because samsara is a changing entity. Subject to kartrutva, bhoktritva, sukhitva, dukhitva, birth, death. And so samsari, meaning a transmigrating soul or a bound entity, has to be changing. Whereas consciousness is changeless, therefore consciousness cannot be samsari. Abhasasyapi vastutah, the chidabhasa, the reflection of consciousness, by itself is a vastu. You cannot say that it is because when the mirror is not there, reflection is not there. You cannot say it is not because when the mirror is there, you see it. Therefore, we cannot categorize the abhasa reflection is or is not. The standard case of sat asadbhyam anirvachaniyam. It cannot be defined as such. So it's not a vastu. For somebody to be a samsari must be a real entity, which abhasa is not. No, achititvat ahankartuhu. Third is the the ashraya of that abhasa, which is ahankara, ahamvritti, by itself is achititvat, insentient. That also cannot be samsari. So samsari must be a sentient or conscious entity, number one. Must be changing entity also. And must have some reality. It must have reality, must be changing, and must be conscious, sentient. So none of these three, in fact, satisfy those needs for being a samsari. Kasya samsarita bhavet? Please explain to us who it is who is samsari. And so the answer is avidya. Avidya matra evatah samsarostva vivekatah kutastena atmana nityam atmavan atmani vasah. This question is valid provided the real samsari or real samsara. Avidya matra eva atah samsarah. Yadi evam anirupitashraya samsara moksha. Samsari samsara ashraya. Mukti ashraya. So, who is samsari? The ashraya, the abode of samsara. Who is mukta? The abode of mukti, or liberation. So, anirupitav samsara moksha. Samsara and moksha, both of them cannot be defined. Anirupita ashraya, because that ashraya, who is samsari, cannot quite logically be explained. And who is liberated also ashraya. Samsari is the samsara ashraya. One that possesses samsara, or who is the locus of samsara is samsari. When the locus of mukti is mukta. So who is samsari, who is mukta, that could not be determined from the questions asked in the previous verse. Yadi evam anurvidashayo samsara moksha. Samsara also can be arrived at, because who is samsari cannot be arrived at. Samsara is the samsara ashraya. Moksha also cannot be arrived at, because who is mukta, that also cannot be determined. Tari ma bhutam paramartho kasyabheti. Vedanta says, if you cannot give answer to this question, it is bhushanam natu dushanam. For Vedanta, that we cannot answer who is samsari, etc., that we have no problem with that. We are accepting that this question cannot be determined. Is a bhushanam, is an ornament, natu dushanam, is not a defect. Because if you could arrive at the real samsari, then samsara becomes real. If there is a real liberator, then the liberation becomes real. If samsara is real, then the samsari is a real entity undergoing change, then Atma undergoes change. It transforms from one state of samsari to other state of mukta, therefore also is vikari. Vikari means anitya, means perishable. And so the mukti becomes perishable, anitya, which is not acceptable to us, because we want mukti, liberation, to be permanent. And something can be permanent only when it is not born, it is not happened. If Atma becomes liberated, there must be a reason why Atma became liberated. And whatever it is that made Atma liberated, if that is not there, that cannot be permanent. Whatever made Atma liberated can't be permanent. So if it is not there, the association is not there, it becomes bound again. If Atma was really bound, there was a reason why it was bound. A reason why it is being liberated. So bondage and liberation are real, and reasons for them are also real. In that case, this Mahatma can become bound again, as long as those parameters exist. Therefore, ma tarhi, ma bhutam tarhi paramartho samsara moksha. So let's accept that samsara moksha cannot be real. Because samsara mukta also not real. Let it be. Avidya matra eva atah samsara avidya matra bhranti matra. Therefore, samsara is no more than a bhranti, no more than a notion. Call it delusion or notion. Example, swapnavat, like dream, even though it appears real when you are experiencing it, when you wake up, realize that it was mithya. So also samsara feels very real when as though we are samsari, but that time you realize that this was all in fact not real. How do you recover? Avivekataha. This bhranti always is the aviveka. Atmasrup avivekat. Just as not knowing the true nature of rope creates snake, as the next verse will say, bhranti of snake. So also, the ignorance of true nature of self creates the bhranti of bond. I am bound. That bhranti is created from the ignorance of the true nature of the self. Samsara atmani iva. Therefore, samsara appears as though belonging to Atma. Located. So Atma becomes the locus of samsara. Who is the locus of samsara? Atma. Iva. So as though samsara has its locus in Atma. Meaning that Atma, without becoming a samsari, is thought to be a samsari. That's enough. Vedanta says that you don't need a real samsari for you to feel samsari. Vedanta says you don't need a real snake for you to be afraid. Just because you are afraid does not mean that the cause of fear has to be real. This is brilliant. The most brilliant thing is that just because there is dukkha doesn't mean there has to be cause of dukkha. People are investigating dukkha. Sankhya, everybody investigates what's the cause of dukkha and how to become liberated. Vedanta says because you are dukkhi doesn't mean you are dukkhi. Real dukkhi and a perceived dukkhi would have the same effect. A real snake and a perceived snake. Perceived means a delusion of snake. Will have the same effect, understand? What is called delusion? Because the person whom that Brahma is thinks that it is real. So that's all is necessary, thinking that it is real. There cannot be a better explanation than this really. It's a brilliant stroke. Mithyatvam, only Vedantin has in fact, explained. Like only in the last century, scientists explained the mithyatvam of the universe. So concept of mithyatvam was advanced by the Vedantin. And same concept of mithyatvam was discovered by the scientists. Equally brilliant. And that resolved so many things and then created, the gateway for so much of development, Anyway, and there, Atman Iva, samsara, Atma is as though the ashraya, because we're looking for ashraya of samsara. Atma is the samsari as though samsari. So Atmani Iva Atma Dharma looks like samsara is Atma Dharma, meaning that belongs to Atma, so Atma is as though samsari. Iva avabhasate, Atma Dharma avabhasate iti. Samsara appears as though it belongs to Atma, so it is felt. Iti yojana. Avastubhutasya Atmana parokshata sadati pratibhase nimittamaha. Avastubhutasya samsarasya. Samsara which is not really there, and still Atmani aparokshata pratibhase. In Atma, Sat, as though it's a real, immediate reality of Atma. Samsara, the bondage, sukha dukkha, kartrutva, bhoktrutva. As though they really belong to Atma, that's how they are felt. See, this is what we felt. I feel that I am bound, I feel I am karta, bhokta, sukhi, dukkhi. Everybody experiences that, thinks so. So the samsara or the sense of bondage is experienced as though it is an immediate reality about myself, about Atma. So this is where the catch is. If this is so, how can you say Atma is not samsari? When I feel that I am dukkhi, how can you say I am not dukkhi? No, this is where the problem. On one hand, I know who I am, but you think you don't. That aparoksha anubhava is challenged by Vedanta. Aparoksha anubhava or aparoksha conclusion is challenged by Atma. I deeply feel that I am unhappy, that you may, and still you are not. All my feelings are there. Every feeling is like that. Something did this to me, I did that, etc. All we feel, I did it. These are all intimate feelings. That intimate feeling is what creates the most impact. So samsara means sukhitvam, dukhitvam, etc. Hurt, guilt, everything is all very intimate. And so Atmani avbhasate, there it appears as though it belongs to Atma. I am guilty, I am hurt, I am this, I am etc. Saditi pratibhase, which is not there in Atma. Hurt and this is an example. Hurt and guilt have no room in Atma. Atma doesn't have what it requires to be hurt. Atma doesn't have what it requires to be guilty. Dukkhi. Sat iti, but as though it is really so, I am really hurt, really guilty, really unhappy, whatever. Or good, bad, successful, whatever. Successful is equally samsara. I am great. They ask you to have that kind of perception of yourself. That may be all right as far as, the dealing with some the vyavaharik situation are concerned, positive thinking, etc. may have some value. But none of them is true. And you can't sustain it for too long because that becomes bondage then. To deal with a given situation, if you think like this, and then okay, get out of that. But to continue with that again will be another bondage, I'm great, I'm all right, I'm positive thinking. It may help you momentarily to get out of some negative thinking that you have been doing, but that also has to be dropped because that is also wrong. Saditi pratibhase nimittamaha. The intimately one feels the samsara, guilt, hurt, pleasure, pain, kartrutva, bhoktrutva. Kutasthena, there is something nityam, all right, that is why samsara looks nitya. There is something aparoksha, immediate, so samsara feels immediate. There is something real, that was samsara feels real, That aparokshatvam, immediacy of samsara, means sukhitva, dukkhitva. And reality of samsara. Samsara appears real also and intimate also, belonging to me. So samsara acquires that qualities from Atma. Atma is intimate, therefore samsara, which seems to be located in Atma, also is intimate as aparoksha. And Atma is nitya, so samsara, as though located in Atma, also feels nitya, real, intimate and real. This intimacy and reality that samsara has have been derived from Atma. Atmani iva. Tatra. So this is adhyasa prakriya that Vedanta explains. To explain this, how can you feel something which is not there? It's called adhyasa. In psychology, it's called transference. Not identical, but transference means what happened at a given point in time. To me, I feel is happening now at this time, in this point. Or whatever belonged to some X, Y, Z, I think belongs here. Both kind. Upon I, the transference can there be there. Upon someone else, transference. This is psychology explains that. Meaning transference meaning seeing something where it is not is also there. So this adhyasa is a phenomenon happening in our life. Like rope snake, etc. So that's Vashyakara, there is something called adhyasa. It's not unusual that we see what is a shell, we see it as silver. Not unusual, it happens. In Adhyasa Bhashya, this Shuktika Rajatam example is accepted, not rope snake. Whatever, that must have come to Bhashyakara's mind that time. But then there is a phenomenon like this there where you see silver where in fact there is a shell. See something precious where there is something without any value, and vice versa. And something like that is happening. Nityam, as samsara appears nitya. Iti anya adhina atmavataha. So, looks like it is belonging to Atma. So, Atma's nityata is borrowed by samsara. Atma's reality is borrowed by samsara. Atma's intimacy is Atma's intimacy gets reflected in samsara. Atma's atmatma immediacy reflects in samsara. Atma's nityatvam is in samsara. So my problems are real, intimate, belonging to me, all the time, keep on crying and crying and crying and justifying. Human being needs justification for his problems, basically. Whatever I feel, I need justification. Yeah, there is a reason for that, because this happened, that happened, did not happen. So human mind wants and seeks or constructs a justification for the way I feel. And then I can act upon that feeling because that's really so. I'm guilty, I'm hurt, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm successful, whatever. Unless it is real to me, I can't react. But habitually all of these are taken really belonging to me. And that's how then we react. So let us observe this phenomenon, this immediacy. This is very important, the immediacy of intimacy of samsara, reality of samsara. Both of these are simply a delusion or a notion. Samsara is not intimate, doesn't belong to Atma. It is not real, nitya, does not belong to Atma. It is merely a notion, meaning that I am sukhi, I am dukhi, I am this, I am that. All of these are simply notions because of adhyasa. So that is explained. Somewhere this belongs. Somewhere a sukha dukkha belongs, somewhere kartrutva bhokta belongs. We don't say it doesn't belong. Somewhere there. What belongs in anatma upadhi is thought to belong to Atma. So this is how Vedanta, once you understand that when the proper diagnosis is there, cause is, then the solution will be there. The solution must be compatible to the problem. People keep on applying various solutions, finds, but the finds no, apply the different methods, find no solution. Whether it is technology, whatever kind of solutions are there to human beings. You think that you can make him happy, that is, you forget it. By making prosperous, you can make him, you can pull him out of poverty, which is required. Pull him out of misery that poverty creates, we don't deny that. Yes, poverty creates misery of its own, and that misery will go, hopefully. Misery per se will not go, because that is created by mind. If misery was created by lack of some resources, then I understand that I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, etc. So that's the real thing, because it belongs to the body at level. And those should be solved. Or we should certainly strive to relieve human beings from that kind of suffering. But that he can be made free from emotional suffering, now he has to do that. Or we can, in some different way, we have to help him. Physical suffering, it becomes the duty of the king, a ruler, to help his subjects. But whether we stop drinking and all that is a different matter. Whether drugs will go, whether smoking will go, whether pan masala will go, whether alcohol will go, etc., that is a different matter. Simply by changing the house and giving comfort, that belongs elsewhere, elsewhere. Anyway, whatever samsara belongs not to discomfort, etc. That does not mean there is justification for poverty or illiteracy, no justification, because they also have to contribute in the solution. You need a comfortable life, you need a person who understands things, education, and they also create the background for his further emotional growth also. Ultimately comes from understanding of life, right understanding, and all the time observing or making note of how we are applying wrong understanding habitually. So habitual wrong understanding has to be constantly corrected by the intellectual right understanding to bring them in alignment. All intellectual understanding, this is not going to solve any problem. These classes will not solve any problem. They just in the intellectual understanding. Only when we apply this, because all problems are emotional problems. Samsara has source in intellectual problem, but effect in emotional problem, But Swami used to say it's not a it's a philosophical problem. So this is philosophy. But effect is psychological, Nobody suffers from philosophical problems. You don't become miserable. What becomes miserable is the emotional stuff. But so-called philosophical or thinking problem ultimately comes down. Continuing now, Atma Sattaya Sattavan Atma Dharma Vibhasade Samsara. The samsara, meaning my suffering, is felt, intimate and real. Atma Satya, because Sattva, reality of Atma, existence of Atma. So samsara, it feels like Atma Dharma, belonging to Atma. As here as Atma, belonging to Atma. Just because it feels like belongs to Atma, it doesn't have to be. That's all Vedanta says. Just because intimately feel your soul doesn't mean it has to be. Because we always feel intimately. Iti eda drishtantena spashtayati, that how one thing is not there and can still appear to be there is a standard drishtanta here, Rajju Sarpa. So next one says, this one accepts Rajju Sarpa. Here. Although Adhyasa Bhashya as Rajata Shuktika Rajata, this is Rajju Sarpa. Rajju Sarpo yatha Rajva Satmakah Prag Vivekatah Avastu Sannapiheshah Kutesthena Atmana Tatha. Spashtartha, no explanation. So you find your own meaning. Rajju, yatha Rajju Sarpa Prag Vivekatah Rajva Satmakatah. Yatha Rajju Sarpa, just as the rope snake. Satmaka he is possessed of Atma. Rajju Sarpa appears possessing Sarpatvam, meaning that that snake appears to be real. What I see possesses snakeness. That is Satmaka. Atmana sa vartate. Iti Satmakam. So the Rajva, on account of Rajju, third case. Rajva, because of Rajju, Satmaka, the Sarpa appears to be possessed of Atma, reality. So reality belongs to Rajju. And that reality is passed or seen to belong to snake. That snake appears real is because the reality of Rajju is thought to belong to snake. Prag Vivekata, as long as Viveka does not take place, as long as true nature of that is not recognized, so long it remains. Avasannabhihesha kutasthena atmana tasmil esha samsara. So avastu sannapi. So this samsara also, even the avastu, is not a vastu. And still, kutasthena atmana, because atma is kutastha, changeless, nitya, intimate, therefore samsara also appears kutastha, changeless, intimate, belonging to me. So what is explained in the previous verse is explained here, or to describe the previous explained with an illustration. Matantaramashritya kalpana lagavena sankate. This is all long drawn explanation of how I feel samsari, because Atma is intimate and the samsara is so this is like a little long drawn argument, a reasoning to explain samsara. You can make it simple. Now you do many kalpanas. That Atma is nitya and therefore there is adhyasa, therefore there is samsara nityatvam, which is a brahma. What if Atma is samsari? The simple thing would have been that Atma is lagama, means that this is, involves minimum variables. Gaurava means more variables are involved, less, what shall I say, less acceptable is the explanation. Fewer the variables are, more superior the explanation. More the variables are, there are likely to be holes in that, more variables are there, more dependence is there, it's likely that you may be wrong someplace or some different reasoning can be found out. So lagama means involving minimum variables. Kalpana lagavena, you are doing a long drawn kalpana. The Atma is nitya, asamsari, and samsara doesn't belong anywhere, is just adhyasa, is a notion. So we suggest simple thing. Atma is samsari. So next verse is Atma bhasashrayaschatma pratyayai svair vikaravan sukhi dukhi cha samsare nitya eveti kechana. Kechana, some people say that. That's a Purva Pakshi. Atma abhasa ashrayascha. Atma abhasa ashrayascha atma. Who is the ashraya or the locus of Atma bhasa or Chidabhasa? So who is the locus of Chidabhasa? Atma. Atma abhasa means what? Chidabhasa. Ashraya means locus. Who is the locus of Chidabhasa? Atma. Atma is the locus of Chidabhasa. And Svaihi Pratyahi Vikaravan. That Chidabhasa keeps on going on because Chidabhasa means the reflection in the Aham Vritti which is constantly changing. So that change, why do you think change belongs to the Aham Vritti and then is thought to be an Atma? Atma undergoes change. So something, somewhere else the change is and that change is superimposed here and therefore change appears. So the Atma is changing. Svaihi Pratyahi Vikaravan. Atma, Atma bhasashraya. Atma, that is ashraya or Atma bhasa Chidabhasa, is Vikaravan itself undergoing change. Swahi Pratyahi, by the various pratyas, cognitions or various conclusions that take place. Sukhi Dukhi cha samsara. Atma is Sukhi, Dukhi and samsare. Nitya Atma alone. Iti kechana. So this is Kalpana Laghavam, simple. Whether it is meaning, whether it can be justified is a different thing. Whether Nitya Atma and Samsari, all of these make sense, is a different matter. But this look at a simple explanation. Why don't go for a simple explanation? Atma is Samsari. So going to Tika, Chakaraha evakararthaha Atma avasayascha. There is a Chakara there. That means eva. Means Atma avasayascha. Atma avasashrayascha. Atma eva Atma eva Atma bhasashraya. Atma alone is the ashraya, the locus of Atma bhasa Chidabhasa. So it is not Aham Vritti that is locus. What do we say? Aham Vritti is the locus of Chidabhasa. And then Adhyasa takes place, so Atma is thought to be the locus. So two steps involved. Atma itself is locus of Chidabhasa. Why Aham Vritti is locus and then because of Adhyasa Atma is thought to be locus. So Aham Vritti is samsari and Atma is, why Atma is locus of Chidabhasa? Atma vasatva abhimatasya jivatvasya ashraya. So Jiva is the locus of the Chidabhasa, and so Atma alone is the locus of Chidabhasa. So therefore Atma is Jiva. Ata sa eva svaihi swadharmabhutaihi pratyay vikaravan. So different pratyas take place, different conclusions take place. Sukhi aham, dukhi, with notions take place. Sukhi, dukhi. To say that aham vritti is sukhi dukhi. What do we say? Aham vritti is sukhi dukhi and Atma is thought to be sukhi dukhi. They say, why do you say aham vritti is sukhi dukhi? Atma is sukhi dukhi. So one less variable. Svaihi means swadharmabhutaihi pratyaya. Pratyaya here is what? The conclusions, notions. Vikaravan sukhi dukhi chayati evam samsari bhavati. Therefore, Atma is sukhi, Atma is dukhi. So less variables, simpler explanation. So Atma is Vikaravan, samsari, sukhi dukhi. Why not? Because this is, now, for example, to say that, science will say that consciousness is produced or created in the brain by the chemical reaction. So consciousness is property of body or brain. So brain dead means consciousness dead, that's all. We say consciousness is always there and it gets reflected here. Why do you think it gets reflected? It's there. So consciousness belongs to body, simple explanation. That consciousness, independent, transcendental principle, and body as though becomes enlivened in the presence of consciousness. That's a long drawn, and that can't be proven. Nor the other thing can be proven anyway. To prove that consciousness belongs to body also is they think they can prove, etc. But nobody can prove it either. But that's a simple explanation. And so consciousness therefore is the result of chemical combination. So first time when thing became, there was that similar combination was there, so consciousness arose in a primordial soup. When similar conditions created, consciousness gets created. When it stops, then his brain there, it's gone. So this is what you can, now this can be proven in laboratory because you can't create consciousness by any chemical combination, but this is closer than, simpler explanation. I don't think that they can prove this either because nobody can create consciousness. Not that as yet I have not seen and I don't think it can because it's not a created thing therefore. Oh, that's what we think. What is created is sentiency. It can't be confused with consciousness. Sentiency, now anyway wasting time, but what I'm saying is that simpler explanations. So that sukhitvam, dukhitvam belongs to Atma, not ahamvritti. Ahamvritti is not the asaya of samsara. Atma is samsara. Atma is sukhi dukhi. But tathapi nitya, the problem is even then Atma is still nitya. They want to accept Atma as nitya. And still sukhi dukhi. So that's why the contradiction is. Now how can something that is nitya appear to have changes? Atma undergoes change, now is sukhi, then dukhi, and still it is nitya. How can nitya and changing, both of them, how can they go together? So they give an example. Tarangadivihi vikriyamanasyavi samudrasya sthairya darshanat. Samudra remains samudra, understand. So even though samudra undergoes all changes as far as taranga and then, the waves and foam and bubbles and all this and storms are concerned, but samudratva is there, It remains ocean. But ocean in space, ocean is calm, whatever be the attribute of ocean, the oceanness is there. So ocean is nitya. Oceanness is nitya, understand? Even the ocean is changing, still the oceanness is nitya, so also Atma is changing, and still it is nitya, like ocean. Tarangadivi vikriyamanasyapi samudrasya sthairya darshanat. Even though samudra is vikriyamanasya, undergoing vikara or change, like with waves, etc., constantly changing, and still that it is samudra, that kind of conclusion doesn't go, it remains. Samudratvam is nitya. So nityata and change can go together, for that example is samudra. So nityata of Atma and samsara can go together, why not? Atah Atmabhasa tadashrayatmana bhedakalpanat. Therefore, Atma abhasa tadashrayatmana. There is Atma, abhasa, and then there is an ashraya. That Atma Bhasa is different, the Ashraya is different, Aham Vritti, and then Atma is different. Bhed Kalpana, Tat. So Atad Abhivek, then new Kalpana, further Kalpana is Abhiveka between Aham Vritti and Atma Aviveka. Therefore, what belongs to Aham Vritti is thought to belong to Atma. That's your Kalpana. Instead of that, Atma alone is undergoing change. So you don't bring Aham other Abha. So that Chidabhasa is one Ashraya and that Ashraya is Atma. Atma is Ashraya of Aham Vritti and that is Ashraya of Chidabhasa. Atma itself is, Ashraya of Chidabhasa. So, samsara kalpana cha guru, the way you are explaining is long drawn, involves more variables. That samsara belongs to ahankara, then it is thought to be an atma. Instead, atma alone is samsari. So, atma is samsari kalpana, laghiyasi, guru and laghu. So, gariyas and laghiyas. Gariyasi, laghiyasi. Therefore, the atma alone is samsari. Is a simpler explanation. Is kechana manyante ityartha. That's what some people believe. So, you see, even when you drew your conclusion, and still that has to be further questioned and deliberated upon. Whether any other explanation is possible in your conclusion. You drew a conclusion that the intimacy of the samsara, the nityatva of the samsara do not belong to samsara, belong to Atma because of adhyasa. Is some other explanation possible? That we must explore. There are other possibilities that are explored here to eliminate. That's the way to do the research, to do the vichara. It's called vichara. So, then says, Uktam Purastad Asma. We already said this actually. Uktam Purastad Asma Bihi Sambhavyo Gochare Shabdaha. Verse 24, we already seen that. That Shabdaha, that a word can describe something that is Indriya Gochara. Gochara means whatever can be objectified by sense organs is what can be described by word. Word cannot describe that which is not Indriya Gochara, which cannot be objectified by sense organs. Because word can describe that which possesses the qualifications of Shabda is possible where only when there is Jati, Kriya, Guna, Sambandha, Shashti. Rudi, yeah, Shashti. So, when these kind of Visheshas are there, one or more, the only Shabda can have a scope. Shabda does not have a scope in Atma, which is devoid of all these qualifications. Yatra Atmani. So therefore, how can you say Atma is samsari? Have you seen a samsari Atma? So you say Atma is samsari kalpana laghiyasi, the Atma alone is samsari. That is a simpler explanation. But how do you arrive at that? Atma and samsara cannot be seen together. We already saw that. You cannot make a connection of bondage with Atma because Atma, bondage can be experienced by you. Atma cannot be because it doesn't fall in the category of that which can become object of experience. How do you connect them? You are experiencing bondage, all right. You think you are experiencing Atma, but you are not. At the level at which you are experiencing bondage, at that level Atma is not experienced. Therefore, to connect them is Brahma. Atmani atra samsaritva grahakam pramana nasti. Thus we already discussed this. There is no pramana, meaning that we do not have any valid means of knowledge like perception or shabda or anything which can establish samsaritva atma, which can establish that Atma is samsari. Tanna vismartavyam, don't forget that. When you're making the argument, you're forgetting we already dealt with, But anyway, tanna vismartavyam tvaya. When you're asking the question, you forget what we already, discussed and concluded. But, you don't connect that. What you said there is not connected here. Very often we may already discuss things. Silly questions arise because what is understood there is not applied in this situation. That is applicable here also is not recognized by us. What was arrived at, understood in one context, when we do not see that connection of that understanding to this, then question arises. So looks like that fellow is not connecting. That I am samsari, so Atma eva samsari, that means Atma and samsara are in the same locus. So therefore Atma is as perceptible as samsara is, so Atma cannot be there, but samsari is what? Atma and samsara are connected. Samsarasya asti. And Atma and samsara cannot be connected because samsara can be an object of experience, not Atma. Don't forget that, but still, it abhipriti utpreksha matra mulaya esha. Similarly, though your kalpana Atma samsari is only utpreksha, it's just a projection, nothing more than that. So, point is that you are right. That if something can be explained with fewer variables, it's better, more acceptable, better explanation. But you simply arrived at Atma and samsari, a simple kalpana, but how do you arrive at that? Because Atma and samsara cannot go together. So samsaritma Atma cannot be proven by any means of knowledge. Or cannot be arrived at by any means of knowledge. Na pramana mula iti. So your conclusion Atma eva samsari is utpreksha matra mula esha kalpana. Utpreksha means projection. That the utprekshas are done. For a lot of Bhagavad Kathakaras do a lot of utpreksha, Lord Krishna's, a lot of leelas are described. Nowhere it is described. But then, the Lala came and then he saw his reflection here and then mother. So these are all utpreksha, which is good. It may have value someplace, not here. So when it comes to truth, this utpreksha doesn't work. When it comes to other things, all right. So they have their own place. Utpreksha mula eva esha kalpana. Your kalpana has no mula, no root in any valid means of knowledge. It is just a kalpana. Na pramana mula, not arrived at by pramanam. Iti parihati. So what is bhushanam one place becomes dushanam elsewhere. Or bhushanam in describing glory of the Lord gives you more and more imagination. So that's how children will describe a lot of things, which are just all angels and stuff like that, all to in fact just help him grow in the imagining faculty, so that he can imagine things, which is also important. And a point that you are with reality, but before that the brain has to grow, the emotions have to grow, etc. So all right, but not here. Na pramana mula iti pariharati. Your conclusion, not pramana mulam, it is utpreksha mulam. So next one says, Atma bhasa parijnanat yathatmena vimohita ahankartaramatmaiti manyante te niragamaha. Niragamaha means devoid of agama. Those people who are devoid of agama, devoid of the understanding of scripture. So they know scripture all right, the word, but they do not get the purport, the tatparya of the agama. That's called niragamaha. So therefore they have studied things are all right, but not grasped the tatparya. Atma abhasa aparijnanat. So what is Atma, what is abhasa? Atma paramartha kutastha nityaha. In Atma abhasa, the reflection of Atma, there is Atma. Who is Atma? Paramartha kutastha nityaha. Atma is absolute reality. And kutas not pravaha nitya, kutastha nitya, changelessly eternal. There is a changing eternal, like a river flow, and changelessly eternal. This is Atma. Abhasa, what is Abhasa? Tat chaya rupaha anyatra sankranta mithyabhuta. Abhasa means reflection. The chaya, it call it chaya. Chaya also can mean reflection. Shadow, reflection. Then anyatra sankranta, which is found elsewhere. So the Atma is here, like face is here, the reflection is found elsewhere. Anyatra sankranta. So reflection is that which has entered elsewhere, sankranta, in a mirror. Similarly, Atma Abhasa means that the reflection of Atma that has entered into Aham Vritti, let us say. So what is the real? You must understand the reality of Atma. You understand the reality of Abhasa. That Atma is Paramartha, Kutastha Nitya, Abhasa Tatchaya Rupa is of the nature of its reflection. Anyatra, it's elsewhere, not in Atma. It's in Aham Vritti here. Reflection is elsewhere in mirror. Mithya Bhuta also it is established that reflection is mithya, anirvachaniya, can't be categorized as sat or asti, is there or not there. It Atma Abhasa Yasatmya. So this is Yasatma, meaning that this is the true nature of Atma and Abhasa. Aparijnana, when they do not know this true nature of Atma and Abhasa, then they mix up the two. Mohitaha santaha. Therefore they think that Atma and Abhasa belong to the same location. Samsara is an Abhasa. Because Abha, reflection, he always follows the mirror. If mirror changes, then reflection changes. Face doesn't have to change. So changing is there, something is changing. But to say Atma is changing, but you do not Atma is Kutastha Nitya, changeless. And Abhasa is what doesn't belong to Atma, is elsewhere in Aham Vritti or in a mirror, in another ashraya. So this Yasatma, this is the nature of Atma and Abhasa, aparijnana. Not knowing that. They think that Abhasa is where Atma is ashraya of Abhasa. They think that changes take place. Changes take place in Aham Vritti, that's the mirror, not in Atma. This way elaborately the example of the face and mirror were all discussed there. So aparijnanat mohitaha. Mohitaha santaha, therefore being deluded, not knowing the essential nature of Atma and Abhasa. Savasa antahkaraneva Atma ite manyante. Therefore they think that antahkaranam or Aham Vritti is Atma. Savasa, where Aham Vritti is there, reflection is also there. So antahkaran never exists by itself. It always has the Abhasa or reflection, reflected consciousness. Call it antahkarana, call it Aham Vritti, possessed of reflected consciousness, is Atma. That's what they think. Not realizing that Atma is one entity, Antahkaran is another entity. Yata niragama, because they don't have the benefit of agama, then they would know what's the essential nature of Atma, and they would never imagine that Atma is samsari. Agama rajasya parichaya shunyaha ityartha, meaning that they do not know the rahasya, they do not know the tatparya of the agama. The words of agama they would know, not the tatparya. So what's the agama you're talking about? Nishkalam, Nishkriyam, Shantam, Niravadyam, Niranjanam. This Atma is Kutastha Nitya. From these statements, Nishkalam, partless. Nishkriyam, actionless. Shantam, ever tranquil. Niravadyam, ever pure, free from any kind of defect. Avadya means that which is not speakable, meaning that which possesses, that can be censured. Nirvadyam, uncensured, devoid of any defect or any blemish. So, blemishless. Niranjanam, Anjana means the blackness, impurity, ever pure. So this is what Agama says. Sakshi, Cheta, Kevalo, Nirgunasya is ever witness. Cheta that imparts the consciousness, enlivens things called Cheta. Kevala non-devoid. Nirguna devoid of any attributes. Krishna prajnana gana eva. Krishna whole, complete of the nature of mass of consciousness, dense consciousness, of the nature of pure consciousness. Atrayam Purusha Swayam Jyotihi. This Purusha, the self, is self-effulgent. Self-effulgent means self-existing. What can reveal itself, it must be all self-existing, self-sufficient. Ityadi Nitya Shuddhatvadi Paras Shruti Sandarbham. They do not know that all these Shruti Sandarbha, all these statements of Shruti reveal the Nitya Shuddhatva Atma. Atma is ever pure and Kutastha, changeless. They do not know thus the essential nature of Atma and Atma Bhasa. Anishaya shows, this is Atma Bhasa. Anishaya shows the Muhyamanaha. Because Adhyasa, identifying with the body, mind, sense complex, and never feels as limited and as lacking, wanting as them, and never feels Anisha, helpless. Muhyamana, variously deluded, Shochati, all the time grieves. Avidyamantare vartamanaha. So this Atma Bhasa is described also. The ignorant one also, samsari also is described. Avidyamantare, all those fellows who think that they are great, well-learned people, but in fact only reveling in ignorance. Anutehini pratyudhaha. Said they do not know every day. So Chandogya says that this farmer, in his field, under his farm, a treasure is buried. He doesn't know that every day goes up and down. Similarly, the treasure is there of Atma in deep sleep. Every day we go there and come back. But do not realize that treasure is our nature. So, Anuteyani, that is why they are all covered by ignorance. So because of ignorance they do not know. Ityadi Shruti Sandarbham. So this is the nature of Atma Bhasa. So Shruti clearly describes what is Atma and Atma Bhasa. Atmana avidyaka samsara anuvada param. And that this samsari Atma is described is due to avidya. Avidyayamantare vartamanaha muhyamanaha shochati. See, Upanishad says shochati because muhyamanaha, because of variously deluded the shoka arises. Avidyamantare vartamanaha, they are reveling, dwelling only in ignorance. That is why they think that way. That samsara is product of avidya also is stated there. And Atma is Nitya Kutastha also is stated there. So, nature of Atma and Atma Bhasa or Samsara, both are clearly described in the scriptures for you to understand them. So, Avidyaka Samsara Anuvada Param, even when Upanishad says Anishaya Shochati Muhyamana, variously deluded, grieves because he feels helpless, but there is avidyakam. That's not the essential nature of him. Because of ignorance he thinks himself, the samsara is product of avidya, also clearly described in the Upanishads. It is for you to understand the tattvarya. Tena pashyanti. They do not have that subtlety to understand what the Upanishad means, what it is that is meant to be conveyed. Ataha sotprekshaya yat kinchideva pashyanti. Since the pramana of the Upanishad. So Upanishad has enough number of statements to ascertain the true nature of Atma as Nitya Kutastha, to ascertain nature of samsara also as moha or brahma. So it is not our utpreksha that we are saying this. The samsara is brahma. This is what Upanishad says. Therefore, those who are sagamaha, those who have the benefit of knowing the tatparya of the agama or Vedas, they can see that Veda describes Atma as Nitya Kutastha and samsara is a moha, product of moha or ignorance. From there, Vedanta, so this is what Upanishad says, and this is explained by different prakriyas. You follow? So Vedanta is a prakriya of abhasa and adhyasa and this and that. It is not rootless. The root for, so that explanation is here in the Upanishads. Therefore, Vedanta gives you a structure, a logical structure to understand what the Upanishad means. That's all. It is not that Vedanta has created Vedanta, for him, Vedanta, Upanishad is pramana. Upanishad says, what's the nature of Atma? Nitya Kutastha. What's the nature of samsara? Avadyakaha samsara. That is what is evident for those who understand the Shastra. Then that understanding is explained in terms of this prakriya, by these examples, by these models, so that then it becomes easier for others also to understand what the Upanishad reveals. They don't have to be individual. So they draw their own conclusion for what the Upanishad says. So utprekshaya yat kinchaya vadanti. Therefore they say whatever they want to say. By their own kalpana, which is not based on pramana, based on their kalpana, iti abhipraya. So you arrive at different explanation which is simpler, but then it is wrong. A simpler thing doesn't have to be necessarily more beneficial. Everything simple is not always beneficial. So explanation simpler doesn't mean that it's more beneficial. It can throw you off. And therefore the explanation we have given is appropriate. So you have to justify, and that is why you question your own, our own conclusion or understandings question from different standpoints. That's why Purva Pakshas come. So that like the gold has to be subjected to fire. And then it comes out pure. So also our conclusion, understanding is subjected to this kind of scrutiny. Whoever that fellow is. And you have to clear and then come out clean with all this scrutiny also. So Vedanta has to accept that challenge, and that is what is the discussion is going on here. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutav Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. દુઃખદ સમાચાર આપવાના છે બધાને કે આપણા રાધિકાબેન પરીખનું અવસાન થઈ ગયું. આજ સવારે કાલ રાત્રે થયું હશે, કાલે રાત્રે થયું. હોસ્પિટલમાં હતા, જ આઈસીયુમાં હતા, અને નસીબ જો કે વાત થઈ વિડીયો પર, એટલે એમના દીકરાને ફોન કર્યો મયંકને કે સ્વામી વિડીયો વાત કરાવો, તો કે હા. એટલે સ્વામી દર્શન તો કર્યા એમણે. એ તો પેલા એના ઓક્સિજન વગેરે પર હતા, બોલી શકે એમ ન હતા, પણ જોયું, એકનોલેજ કર્યું, એટલું થયું. એટલે વળી એ એમનો જેવો સંકલ્પ હશે ને, કેટલું બધું એમના મનમાં હશે કે છેવટે એ પ્રકારનો પણ ચાલો સંયોગ સર્જાયો કે જેથી એ સ્વામીજીના દર્શન કરી શકે એમના માટે. અને બહુ વખતથી એ કેવી રીતે જીવંત હતા એ જ આપણે માટે તો આશ્ચર્યની વાત છે. એક સમય એવો હતો જ્યારે 24 કલાક ઓક્સિજન એમને જોઈતો હતો, પછી પાછું વધે ઘટે એનું થયા કરતું હતું, દવાઓ વધે ઘટે થયા કરતું હતું. પણ એક વસ્તુ એ તો બહુ મોટા ટૂંકમાં યોદ્ધા, ફાઇટર. એ કશી વસ્તુમાં નીચું નમતું ના જોખે. આવી સ્થિતિમાં કોઈ માણસ તો ઘરની બહાર જ ના નીકળે, અને એ તો નીકળે. આપણા અગત્યના ફંક્શનમાં આવે, ઉપર આવે ને આરતી કરે ને બધું કરતા હતા. મેં તો ત્યારે એકવાર એનો વિડીયો જોતો હતો, એનું કોઈ ફંક્શનનો, ગીતા જે કંઈ હતું ને, બીજું કંઈ ફંક્શન હતું, હું ત્યાં જ વિડીયો જોતો હતો. દશેરા, હા, દશેરા નહીં, હા, ના ના એ નહીં, પણ મેં તો વિડીયો ત્યાં જોયેલો એના કોઈ ફંક્શનનો. એ ગુરુ પૂર્ણિમા હશે. તો મેં ગુરુ પણ ઉપર આવીને આરતી કરતા જોયા. હું કહું શું આ તો રાધિકાબેન છે. એટલે ટૂંકમાં પગ જુઓ તો સળખડી જવા. આટલું 4 ડગલા ચાલે બધા એટલા બધા હાંફી જાય કે એમને કેટલી 2 મિનિટ જોઈએ એમની હાંફ શાંત થવા માટે. હવે આ બધો લંગનો ફાઇબ્રોસિસ ક્યાંથી લાગી ગયો ભગવાન જાણે. ફાઇબ્રોસિસ ઓફ લંગ્સ. એ લંગની કેપેસિટી ઘટતી ગઈ, ઘટતી ગઈ, ઘટતી ગઈ, ઘટતી ગઈ. આવા કિસ્સા અમે જોયેલા છે ત્યાં અમેરિકામાં પણ. ક્યાંકથી લાગી જાય. કેમ લાગી ગયો ભગવાન જાણે. કોઈ વાયરસ લાગી ગયો, શું લાગી ગયું, જે હોય તે. પણ ઘણી બધી દવાઓ કરી, એટલે બંને આયુર્વેદની દવા પણ ચાલુ હતી ને એલોપેથીની પણ ચાલુ હતી, બધી કરતા હતા. અને એટલા માટે એમને આટલા વર્ષ મળ્યા જીવનમાં. એમણે આટલો પુરુષાર્થ કર્યો કોઈક રીતે પોતાના સ્વાસ્થ્યને કેવી રીતે જીવવું, રિકવર થવું, બધા માટે સતત એમણે લડાઈ આપી, લડત આપી. એટલે આટલા વર્ષે જીવ્યા. અને જીવ્યા પાછા કંઈ નહીં કરતા રહ્યા. આની અંદર પણ ગુજરાતી સાહિત્ય સભામાં કંઈ કરતા હોય, કંઈ લખતા હોય, કે તૈયાર કરતા હોય, પ્રવચન આપતા હોય, કહેતા હતા કે આવી રીતે સાહિત્ય સભામાં તે દિવસે આ વિષય પણ મારે બોલવાનું હતું. વિશ્વકોશ સંકળાયેલા હતા, એમાં આ કરવાનું હતું. એ પ્રકારે પોતાની જાતને, બુદ્ધિને પણ એ વ્યસ્ત રાખતા હતા. આવા સંજોગોમાં જે બોલાય બોલતા હતા. છેલ્લે વળી અહીંયા પણ એમના પુસ્તકનું વિમોચન પણ થયું, બી આવૃત્તિનું. એટલે છેક સુધી એ તો વ્યવસ્થિત જીવ્યા, પૂર્ણ જીવન જીવ્યા એમ કહેવાય, એકલા જ. અને સ્વસ્થતાથી જીવ્યા, ગૌરવથી જીવ્યા એમ કહેવાય, આત્મગૌરવથી જીવ્યા. અને પોતાનું જે પૂરું ભરણ પોષણ કરતા હતા. એટલે એ વળી સ્ટોક માર્કેટ વગેરેની અંદર પણ એક્ટિવ હતા, અને એ રીતે બધું કરતા હતા. સાહિત્ય એકેડેમીમાં એક્ટિવ હતા, ત્યાં પણ કરતા હતા. આપણા વર્ગોમાં એક્ટિવ હતા, એમ પણ કરતા હોય. અહીં જે થાય એ પ્રકારે કરતા હોય. જે કંઈ આરતી, જે કંઈ ડેકોરેશન કરવાનું હોય, પેલું પારણું બનાવવાનું હોય, બધું એ કરે. અને ફરવાના બહુ શોખીન હતા. આપણી સાથે યાત્રામાં આવ્યા એ સિવાય બહુ જગ્યાએ ફરતા હતા. એટલે એના પણ શોખીન હતા. શોખીન માણસ. અને પ્રેમાળ, શોખીન, પુરુષાર્થી, ઉત્સાહી અને લડાયક. હા, એ સ્વાભિમાની તો ખરા જ, બરાબર છે. પણ એને કારણે જ લડાઈ પણ આપી શકે ને તમે. અને નમતું નહીં જોખવાનું. એટલે મૃત્યુ સામે નમતું નહીં જોખવાનું. એટલે બહુ આત્મગૌરવપૂર્ણ જીવન જીવ્યા છેક સુધી. ભલે ફરિયાદો કરતા હશે, પણ નવી દીનતા અને એ બધી એને વશ નહોતા થતા. કે દીન છું, હીન છું, અસહાય છું. એવું થતું હોય જીવનમાં છેવટે તમે પરવશ બની જ જાઓ, શરીર તમારું પરવશ બનાવી જ દે તમને. એટલે તમે મનથી ગમે તેટલા સ્વતંત્ર હો તો પણ શરીરથી માણસ પરવશ બની જાય છે, એટલે પછી પરવશતા આવે છે. પણ નહીતર તો એ આવી રીતે હંમેશા ગૌરવાન્વિત રહ્યા, બહુ ઉત્તમ જીવન જીવી ગયા. અને છેવટે ગઈકાલે રાત્રે ભેગા થયા. એક તમે પીડાનો પણ અંત આવે એમ કહી શકાય. પણ આ રીતે હતા રાધિકાબેન. તો એમની સ્મૃતિમાં આપણે આટલું તો કરીએ. આપણે 8મો અધ્યાય ભગવદ્ ગીતાનો એનો પાઠ કરીએ, હનુમાન ચાલીસાનો પાઠ કરીએ. કદાચ એમની બધી પ્રક્રિયાઓ થઈ પણ રહી હોય અત્યારે ખબર નથી. હા, એટલે એ જ અગ્નિ સંસ્કાર વગેરેની પ્રક્રિયાઓ કદાચ ચાલતી હશે કે ચાલશે. તો એ દરમિયાન આપણે ભગવદ્ ગીતાનો 8મો અધ્યાય અને હનુમાન ચાલીસાનો આપણે પાઠ કરીએ. આપો આપો ભાઈ. હા, એક બીજું પણ હતું, રાઈટ. શારદાબેન પટેલ, એમનું પણ અવસાન થયું થોડા દિવસ પહેલાં. ओम श्री परमात्मने नमः. अथाष्टमो पौत्र देहेऽस्मिन् मधुसूदन. श्रीभगवानुवाच अक्षरं ब्रह्म परमं स्वभावोऽध्यात्ममुच्यते. अधिभूतं क्षरो भावः पुरुषश्चाधिदैवतम्. अन्तकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरम्. यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरम्. तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु मामनुस्मरयुध्य च. अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन चेतसा नान्यगामिना. कविं पुराणमनुशासितारम् अणोरणीयां समनुस्मरेद्यः. प्रयाणकाले मनसाचलेन भक्त्या युक्तो योगबलेन चैव यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति विशन्ति यतयो वीतरागाः सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनोहृदि निरुध्य च ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन् अनन्यचेताः सततं यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयमशाश्वतम् आब्रह्मभुवनाल्लोकाः पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तम् अहर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वाः प्रभवन्त्यः रागमे भूतग्रामस्य एवायं भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तः तमाहुः परमां गतिम् पुरुषः स परः पार्थ भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणम् धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम् शुक्लकृष्णे गति ह्येते जगतः शाश्वते मते नैते श्रुति पार्थ जानन् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव दानेषु यत्पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टम् ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासूपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे अक्षरब्रह्मयोगो नाम अष्टमोऽध्यायः। सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः। हरि ओम। हनुमान चालीसा। श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज निज मन मुकुर सुधारे। बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिकै सुमिरौ पवन कुमार। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। बोलो भाई। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर। जय कपीस तिहुँ लोक उजागर। महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी। कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी। हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे। कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे। विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर। राम काज करिबे को आतुर। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा। विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा। लाय सजीवन लखन जियाए। श्री रघुबीर हरषि उर लाए। सहस वदन तुमरो यश गावे। अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे। जम कुबेर दिगपाल जहाते। कवि कोविद कहि सकै कहाते। तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना। लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना। प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माहि। जलधि लांघि गए अचरज नाही। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे। होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे। आपन तेज समारो आपै। तीनों लोक हांकते कांपै। नासै रोग हरै सब पीरा। जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा। नासै रोग हरै सब पीरा। जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा। नासै रोग हरै सब पीरा। जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा। तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा। चारों जुग परताप तुम्हारा। है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। अष्ट सिद्धि नौ निधि के दाता। असबर दीन जानकी माता। तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावै। जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावै। और देवता चित्त न धरई। हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरिचेरा, कीजय नाथ हृदय महडेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरण, मंगल मूर्ति रूप। भूप सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। बोलो भाई सब संतन की। श्री राम चंद्र कृपाळु, भज मन हरण भव भय दारुणम। नव कंज लोचन कंज मुख कर, कंज पद कंजारुणम। कंदर्प अगणित अमित छवि नव नील नीरद सुंदरम। नौमि जनक सुतावरम, सिर मुकुट कुंडल तिलक। अंग विभूषणम आजानुभुज सरचापधर। संग्राम जितखर दूषणम, भज दीन बंधु दिनेश दानव। दैत्यवंश निकंदनम, रघुनंद आनंद कंद कौशल चंद दशरथ नंदनम। इति वदति तुलसी मम हृदय कंज निवास कुरु कामादि खलदल गंजनम। मम हृदय कंज निवास कुरु कामादि खलदल गंजनम। ओम सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। असतो मा सद्गमय, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय, मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय। ओम पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ओम। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम।